Hello Internet, Snake here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, Isle of Armor. All footage and gameplay is from Shield, so just keep that in mind. I don't think it really matters in the end, but just wanted to put that out there for the record. Up until this point in the base game, which was Shield, I have beaten the regular story mode and collected about 320 Pokemon out of the 400. I had put about 50-ish hours into the base game before picking up this DLC. Here are my thoughts on the brand new Pokemon DLC, Isle of Armor. Isle of Armor, which is the first ever DLC expansion for a main Pokemon title, has you travel to an island, named Isle of Armor. You encounter Avery, who should look familiar since you ran into him in the Galar region. He's a Psychic-type trainer who is training to become a gym leader in the Galar region. As you make your way out of the transport station on the Isle of Armor, you encounter him for the first time in a simple battle. This will be the first time you will encounter a unique and interesting variation of Slowpoke. After that battle, you will then begin to make your way to the island's dojo where Avery has been training. Although during my playthrough, I took my time and explored the beach a little bit and the ocean just outside of the station. You will come to find a number of new Pokemon right out of the gate. And when I say new, they're not really new, they're just new to the Sword and Shield game itself. These Pokemon are familiar to fans of the series as you encounter some original 150 Pokemon such as Jigglypuff and Abra. Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam are three of my favorite Pokemon of all time, so this really had me excited about the new Pokemon on this secluded island. You can also find some familiar faces along the way as you begin to explore a bit of the surrounding area, and by familiar faces I mean some of those original 150 Pokemon as well as some older Pokemon as well. Once I got a good feeling for the area, I decided to make my way to the dojo and begin the quest line. You are confronted by Honey and then by the dojo master Mustard. As I began to interact with Mustard, I was getting some strong Master Roshi vibes from Dragon Ball. Just in the way not only he looked, but also just the way that he acted in the quests that he sends you on. I won't go into too much detail on specifics of the quest line, but it just made me smile since I felt like I was being trained by the great turtle master, Master Roshi, doing some of these quests. As many of you know, you will be awarded Kubfu for your new fighting type companion, and will continue the quest line after that. I'll be honest with you, the quest line for the DLC was a bit disappointing, and I will explain the reasons why. Firstly, it is very short, especially if you have a high-level party, you can just easily breeze through the trainers and fights no problem. All of the Pokemon are set to around level 60, just like in the wild area back in the Galar region. There aren't any trainers to battle along the island and its paths, so there's really nothing to do in that regard, only the battles are associated with the quest line. You basically have the quest line, which takes you maybe about 3 hours total, and then that's it. I think it would have been more fun if they treated the Isle of Armor like the Aloha region with Pokemon Trials. It would have been appropriate since the theme of this island is like a karate dojo. I think it would have fit pretty well. Secondly, I believe this is just a paywall to be able to catch more Pokemon. I'll be the first to admit this is my favorite part of the Pokemon games, is being able to try and catch them all, but I feel that these could have been easily included in the base game or added to the post game after maybe say defeating the Elite Four. The reason I say that is because a lot of the Pokemon that are on this Isle of Armor are Pokemon from previous games that we're already familiar with, and really there is no new Pokemon to really speak of. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen playing the many hours that I have in this DLC, I haven't seen any new Pokemon that really jumped out to me. In the end, I feel like I paid $15 out of the $30 to be able to catch these, new Pokemon, but really they're just from older series in a well-developed wild area with very little storyline involved. These are some of my complaints, but I will explain into some more detail the things that I like about the DLC as well. There are a few things that really stood out to me, and I hope that Pokemon Company takes these approaches to their games moving forward. The Isle of Armor is one big wild area, which I think is absolutely fantastic. The addition of these wild areas to Sword and Shield was my favorite new thing about the base games. Being able to see the Pokemon interact with the environments and be visible is something that I think is just fantastic. What makes this wild area on the Isle of Armor even better is how seamless it is. There are different terrains such as beaches, forests, caves, plains, deserts, and so on, and I feel like they blend together really, really well. They aren't thrown together so haphazardly like the Galar region wild area, where 1 second you will be in the desert and then abruptly be in a grassy, rainy environment immediately right after. The wild area on the Isle of Armor just flows so well. There's a good separation between the areas and transitions are more smoothly rather than abruptly like in the Galar region. What interconnects the different areas is a cool underground tunnel system that connects you from the different parts of the island. Think of it as like a highway system underground full of cool ground, steel, and water-type Pokemon that you could battle and catch. Another thing that stood out to me as well is some of the Pokemon animations. Seeing a Sharpedo come flying into battle with me on the ocean was pretty cool, but also made me a little bit anxious. I was definitely getting some strong Jaws vibes from that. But again, I just love the fact that being able to see the Pokemon and interacting in their environment without being invisible is one of the best additions to this game since really the beginning of Pokemon. Difficulty-wise, this expansion was fairly easy for me. Again, like I had mentioned, I had beaten the base game already. I had some Pokemon already in the high 70s, low 80s already before starting this adventure. If you would like to extend this DLC out, I would advise by creating a new team at maybe level 60 and level them up as you go. You will need to spend some time leveling up your Kubfu as well once you get him. He's only going to be at level 10, and you need to get him to about level 70 in order to take on one of the 2 towers toward the end of your campaign on the island. From what I understand, you can go on the Isle of Armor at any point on your Sword and Shield adventure playthrough. You don't have to beat the game in order to access this area, so it may add some more playtime to this DLC if you're starting a playthrough and just going through the base game that way. Replayability-wise, the expansion questline is quick, however there are tons of new Pokemon and raid battles to take on the island. I probably will spend another 15 hours or so just trying to complete the Isle of Armor Pokedex, or at least get as close as I can. There's also a lot of these little Diglets that you have to kind of go around and collect, really reminiscent of like the Korok seeds in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Overall, depending on what you're looking to get out of this first part of the $30 expansion, it could be either good or bad. I wasn't expecting too much in terms of a long story, however, I was hoping to be proven wrong. There's still another expansion coming this fall that may add a lot more depth in the story, so I'm looking forward to that. There are tons of Pokemon to catch on the island, and that's great as well. This alone will keep me playing for another about 15 to 20 hours or so. There are a lot of games out there that cost $30 that won't even give you 10 hours of enjoyment out of, so bravo to you, Pokemon, for at least keeping my entertainment for about 15 or 20 more hours. In conclusion, I think that this expansion so far you could probably sit out on. If you're just starting the base game out, I would probably just play through that first. Once you finish that, you can decide if you want to continue on with the Isle of Armor, wait for the second part of the DLC, or just skip it altogether. For me, I'm a fan of Pokemon. I may not be the biggest fan and keep up with all the names and things like that, but I've played every installation of this series since I was 7 years old, and so there's no way that I was going to miss out on this. I hope you enjoyed this review of Pokemon's first ever DLC expansion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I crazy to think that Mustard is giving off a Master Roshi vibe? It certainly was that way for me. Anyway, love one another and play more Nintendo. See you at the next review.